Okay, so the cut list comes down. We're going to be able to fill out our information. We're going to be working that first line right there. You see a square, and you see a number. And whenever you see that kind of code in a work order, that means the action item is going to follow that little box. The box allows us to put 3 different marks, okay, in that box, and that will allow us to know where we're at any time during the project. If the box is empty, it means the action item hasn't even been started yet. We still got to do the whole enchilada, okay? If there is a small dot inside of the box, it means that we're in process of getting that task done, and that is important because sometimes we can't complete it in one session, or we got to go to the next period. And so we're going to put a dot that says, hey, we're still working on that particular item. And last but not least, when we put a check mark, boom, baby, task is totally complete to the description in the actual work order, and we can move on to the next step, moving down, okay? So for today, this is what I'm doing is I'm putting a dot right there in the first box, and then I'm coming down, and here is our cut list, which is right down there in the lower left-hand corner. If you can't read it on screen, basically what it's saying is we have 2x4 by 8 foot pieces of lumber that have been purchased. That's what we're going to be cutting out of. And then underneath that is all of the different lengths that we need. We need 4 at 4 feet 0 inches. We need, right on down the line. So I put another mark there, and that tells me on the cut list, I put a little dot in that box, bada bing, I'm ready to go. Here we are in the shop. The lumber is right there in the back, and our cut table is set up just like we had in our practice exercises, because we are cutting with our circular saw and using our speed square guide technique. And you're going to watch me do a whole lot of cutting. So first things first, I'm picking up the lumber, and what the heck am I doing with it? I'm twisting it, I'm turning it, I'm looking at it. And so here we go. First question is coming at you, Victor. Looking at the screen, and why am I turning and twisting the lumber instead of just grabbing it and start cutting? And what do you think, Victor? Yeah. Excellent. You were right on. Perfect description. And that is super important because when lumber comes from the yard, I tried to pick as clean and straight as I can. But we are going to first be cutting the long studs, the pieces that go vertical in our wall. So if it has a crack or a gnarly twist or a bend in it, I want to know about it ahead of time and either look for ways to cut that bad part out, or actually turn it to a point where we have an alignment that will actually work. And so each stick we're going to inspect as we pick it up, and then we're going to bring it over to our cut table, and we're going to get it set up to start measuring and marking. Now, one thing I always like to do is I check the full length of the board before we start measuring and marking. The cut list said 4 by 8, right? 2 by 4 by 8, that's an 8-foot stick. And this is actually cut right at 96 inches or 8 feet. Some 2x4s, if you buy the wrong ones, they're going to be a little bit shorter or going to be a little bit longer. Super important. When the cut list says 2 by 4 by 8, that's what we're working with, because in our case, we're going to use the extra lumber that we cut off to make other parts, right? So if it's not the right length, if it's not 8 foot, the parts that you cut off will not be available to make those other pieces, and the whole project kind of goes sideways on us, okay? So we checked it, it's all good, it's an 8-foot stick, and I'm now confident that I can start moving forward and getting this first one cut. Okay, so here we go. We got the tape on the left side, we're marking it at the designated mark, which I think is right there. So we're cutting 4-foot pieces, and we're marking it right there at 4 feet, and we're marking it on the bottom edge of that 2x4. Okay, super important. Everybody memorize that. We're marking it on the bottom edge of the 2x4. That's the edge closest to us as the operator, and I'll show you why here in a minute. This will help speed up the cutting process, because now, as you'll see, I make a small mark. It's about 1/4 of an inch, It's on that leading edge, that front edge of the 2x4. It's not in the middle. It's not on the top edge, because watch this. I'm going to go ahead and clamp the piece down. I'm going to, oh, what am I doing there? I don't know. Let's ask Alexis. Alexis, out there, what are you doing? Can you hear me? Awesome. What am I doing with the saw right now before I actually start cutting through that 2x4? Yeah, perfect. Good job, man. We're going to adjust that blade depth, because if we're too short, man, that first cut, we're not going to make it through. If we're too deep, we're going to be cutting all the way through our sacrificial surface, and it's messed up, and it'll take way too much time. So about a 1/4 inch more than the thickness of the actual wood we're cutting through. Okay, so 2x4 is 1.5 inches thick. 1.5 plus 1/4 puts us at 1 3/4, and that's what I'm setting the tool at. Bada bing, off we go. All right, I lock it down. I've got my speed square. I'm setting up on my mark, and then I set the tool down, grab my second clamp. Again, I'm going to clamp that speed square right where I had it held, and then that allows me to line it up and go 2 hands on the tool. Okay, 2 hands on the tool, keeps it accurate, keeps it safe. I'm pulling through the material and stop right there. Okay, question for you. Who's next here? Dominic, are you out there? Awesome. Okay, Dominic, when I'm making that cut, I kept saying, okay, you got to make sure you follow through, right? You got to cut all the way through the material. So looking at where the saw blade is and the edge that's furthest away from me, is that edge like in the middle of the saw blade or towards the back or the front? What does it look like to you? Toward the back. Perfect. Okay. So if you're cutting and you can kind of see where my head's kind of tilted and I'm looking down the left-hand side of the blade, I am making sure that when I push my blade through, I have to be at least halfway through the blade when I pass the top edge of that board, because that lets the round blade itself cut all the way through and get that last little edge of the board so that it's cut free and clear all the way through. Okay, good job, Dominic. Good observation. That was kind of hard to see, but you saw it. All right, so set the saw down, pull the one clamp. So the piece on my left, because I measured from the left and I cut on the right side of the line, that's the piece that we want to measurement. It's 4 feet. And so I'm going to take that first piece, and here's the good news. I cut 2 at a time, right? They're 8-footers. I'm cutting at 4. All of a sudden, I end up with 2 4-foot pieces. I'm just double checking, kind of feeling the ends when I set it down. And so now I take my next piece. I'm going to double check. Oh, I didn't like that one. Something was wrong. A little bit too crooked. Not good. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit better stick, because what we're cutting right now is the bottom plate and the top plate of the wall, and then the bottom plate and top plate of the roof section that we're going to build. And so that's why we need a total of 4 2x4s at 4-foot lengths. So again, measure from the left, make my mark. I'm going to use my speed square again. Hold it with my left hand. Here it is, a little over the top. So super important. I'm holding the saw in my right hand. I've got my hand on the speed square, holding it tight against that top edge of the 2x4. I bring my blade up and I basically put it on whatever side of the line I want. So in this case, I'm putting it on the left side of the mark, lining up the blade, and then sliding my speed square over to match. Then I set it down. I make sure I don't release my left hand. Keep that speed square nice and tight, because if not, you mess up your location, and then you're going to cut straight through, follow through. That's halfway, full through, down to the edge. Bada bing, we got ourselves 2 more pieces at 4 foot. So that should be the total that we need for that first cut list item. All right, so here I go. Putting that speed square on one side. Let's figure out why I'm doing that. Alexander, are you out there? Alexander, why in the world do you think I got them all lined up there on the floor and then take my speed square and I kind of push them all in alignment? What am I doing there? Yeah, good job, man. I'm so psyched you guys are getting it. So for us to be able to make sure that we are plus or minus an eighth of an inch, right? It doesn't have to be super perfect, but it needs to be as clean and accurate as a cut we get. So I'm going to line it up on one side, and then I'm going to come down here, squeeze them together, see how it looks. Must be okay because I'm moving on and I'm coming back to my cut list. And here we go. I'm going to take that cut list and I'm going to put a check mark, boom, right there on item number 1, which was 4 pieces at 4 foot 0 inches. Got it. Okay, now I'm going to be taking a look at another little section over here. It says crew time log. So here you go. Not only are we responsible for accurately building the job order and the work order, we're also responsible for tracking how much time it takes us as a crew to actually do those tasks. Okay, I'm going to come down, and even though I started, I'm going to back up the clock a little bit. I missed it, but this is what you're going to do each day. You're going to figure out what day it is, the crew members that were actually working that day, so you can see that initial. So I got MV, but if it was me and Victor and Alexis, I would put the 3 of our initials there, so I know we had a 3-person crew. Time in is when we start, time out is when we were done, and then we do a quick little math and figure out how much total time that we worked, and we track it. Okay, so for those of you that have had jobs that pay you by the hour, this should be real familiar. It's like a time card or a timesheet, but we're going to be doing it in relationship to the work order, because as a business owner, you turn those work orders in to the owner, who can then bill those hours back to the client. We all get paid and we move on to the next job. So super important task right here that we're going to make sure each day we practice. And in this case, we started at 12:45 and we're going to keep working here. Okay, second item on the list, I need 4 pieces at 6 foot 3 inches. 6 foot 3 inches. Got it. So now I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to put a dot in the little box that tells me I'm working on that particular item. And here we go. Grabbing some lumber, setting it up on the deck, lining it up to the front edge of the work surface, right? And I'm again going to measure from the left. I'm going to pull that over, find my distance, and check it out. So when you're pulling that tape, just remember, I pulled it. I used the thumb lock to lock it into place about 4 to 6 inches past where I need to mark. Super important. Now all of a sudden the tape can lay right there in balance, accurate, and then I'm going to pull my pencil. I'm going to tilt, right? Roll that tape over so that that leading edge is touching the surface of the 2x4, make my mark, and I am ready to set up to cut. Same thing. I'm going to put a clamp on left side. I'm going to leave one clamp ready to clamp down on the speed square. Put my blade on the mark. Again, I marked on the left, so I'm cutting on the right side of the line. I clamp it. I grab it. One hand on the front handle, one hand on the trigger. Glide through that puppy. Nice and easy all the way through. Stop. Grab the extra piece. Put it on the floor. And bada boom. We've got our first piece. Now I'm going to take this, and I know these are our vertical studs, so I'm going to just lay them on the floor just so I know I'm counting and I can see it, and to start giving you guys a kind of a visual reference on how this wall is going to actually frame up. So we're going to our next piece, and hopefully I'm going to be doing this in this same pattern. I'm measuring from the left. I'm double checking my mark, man. Always measure twice, cut once is our pro tip and our pro memorization, right? There's lots going on. We're thinking about other things, and between your first cut and your second cut, if you can't remember what the measurement is, man, always double check. That's why cut lists are so critical. I'd rather slow down, measure, check it 4 times versus cutting it wrong and wasting material, slowing down the job. And in this case, the amount of 2x4s that you have in your possession on the job site is the exact amount you need to complete the cut list. So if we mess up one cut, we only have, well, there really isn't. There's no extra. You're gonna have to go buy another 2x4. So please double check everything. Have somebody in the crew looking at the numbers, calling them out loud. 6'4", 6'4". Are you sure? 6'4", right? And just make sure you're continuing to cut accurately each and every cut, and that will make sure when you're done, you've got all the parts cut. We haven't wasted any lumber. And in this scenario, we should have about a half to a 2/3 of a piece left, that if we did make a mistake on some of our smaller pieces, we could actually go back and cut those and get them right. Okay. So once you kind of get in a groove, you can move through this pretty quick, right? So that same movement, you kind of try to get in that rhythm. I'm going to clamp it on one side. I'm going to set up my cut. I'm going to clamp my speed square in as a guide. Grab the saw, 2 hands, one on the front, one on the trigger. Glide through, keeping everything nice and steady. Nice even pressure going all the way across. Scrap goes on the floor because we're going to use those, by the way. Don't just toss them in the bin. Keep them next to your cut table, because until we're done with the cut list, we got to make sure we manage our materials. Super important. Some crews, man, I got to cut it and I like to chuck it in the bin just so I'm not tripping on it. No, well, we know ahead. I've told you, you're watching it. Each of these pieces need to be a part of what we're doing, and that's super important for us to keep that nice and organized, okay? So we're cutting our 4th piece. I'm going to scroll forward just a smidge here so we can see what's going on. Now we're going to be cutting some of our smaller pieces, and I wanted to show you this overhead. So I'm taking the tape and I've got it hooked on to the left side of the board, and I'm running it parallel, right? Parallel down the front edge, because that's where we're going to put our mark. Super important. Notice that we're not using the speed square and drawing a line all the way across, so we're not marking it, drawing it, cutting it. We took out one step, because if we use this technique that you're seeing right here on screen, we don't have to do it. Pretty cool. So here it is. It's the measurement. I've got 14.5. Boom. And see how I make that little mark? It's about 1/4 of an inch, and it's right on the bottom edge where I can touch that mark with my blade and line it up perfectly. Okay, so that's something new. That's what you're going to be doing during this whole cut list process, because then I can go ahead and clamp it on the left side. I can grab my speed square. I can line it up to that mark by just nudging up against the front edge of the 2x4. Once I like it, I grab my second clamp that puppy in place, grab the saw, and I'm off and running. Okay, so that kind of close-up process is what we're doing on every single stick that we are cutting, and that allows us to eliminate one process and still cut accurately as we go. All right, so right there, we're going to start cutting our smaller pieces, which are for our roof section. So the long 2x4s are for the wall, the smaller 2x4s are for the roof section, and so we need to cut a total of 4 at this smaller distance, which if I'm looking at my piece, we need 4, or excuse me, we need 2 at 14.5. Those pieces are actually for our window frame, boom, because this wall is going to have a window. And then the last cut list is 4 at 1 foot 7¼ inches. And you will see on the cut list that everything is in feet and inches, or just inches. And I did that very intentionally so that your ability to look at the cut list and make sure you're measuring accurately. So you really got to take a look at how they're actually written on the cut list, and then match that to how you're using the measurements on your tape. Okay, so I'm giving you practice on all this, and sometimes it's all in inches, sometimes it's in feet and inches, and in my case, I kind of mixed the bag so that we could all practice and make sure we're looking. Okay, so we're measuring at 1 foot 7¼ inches, and so it's using both the red and the black numbers You'll see that on your tape. And so that is a skill we have to learn. Why not practice it during the kitchen wall build, right? So we're cutting the last series here, which is going to be 4 of these boards. This 1'7¼ that's going to give us the studs or the roof joists we need to actually make our ceiling section. And I'm just stacking them neatly on the ground behind me. For me, that's a great way to keep track of the pieces and the lengths, because once you got everything cut, if you don't kind of keep them organized so you know which is which, you're going to constantly have to go back and keep measuring and double checking. Now, which part is this? Is this for the window? Is this for the roof? Is this for the wall? So keeping your parts organized is part of our responsibilities as good builders, and it certainly helps when we start putting this puppy together. So we're going to make these last few cuts. That will get us a total of 4 of those pieces, and we will have this puppy ready and the cut list complete. So I'm just going to speed this up. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. I grab my last 2x4. I'm cutting, and then we're going to cut these last longer boards, and all of a sudden we can check off all of those boxes, and we can check off task number 1. Cut list is complete. Aha! Okay, so that is the story for today. Now, before you kind of forget what we just saw and talked about, everybody, I want you to go ahead and open up the Google Classroom, get into your assignment, and you'll see right there, the assignment is going to have the date. Today is 1/18/22, and there's going to be 3 multi-choice questions, and that's what I'd like you to do right now. We've got about 5 or 6 more minutes. What do we got? Around here at 10:20. Perfect. 5 minutes to answer those quick little questions and turn them in. So go for it. I'm going to go ahead and bounce over and make sure I can see what's coming in, and I'll dismiss you as soon as I've got your items graded and checked off. So just listen for your name. I am there now. I'm going to see who has turned them in. And right now, cool, I've got Martin's turned in, I've got Alexander's turned in, and Nate's turned in. So Martin, are you out there? Can you hear me? Martin, are you out there? Okay, super cool. So I've got your answers. You just missed 1 out of the 3. And so making sure, I'm just reviewing this, when you're cutting with the circular saw using the speed square as a guide, where should you place your hands? Da, 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 da. Hold the saw with one hand and stabilize it with the other. And so you hold it down in the speed square with the other hand. Yeah, the correct answer, matter of fact, I don't want to give it away, but you're doing good. I just forgot. Everybody else is listening online. Okay, Martin, thank you. I've got yours. You are good to go. Have a great rest of the day, bud. Okay, Alexander, are you out there? Okay, I got you, buddy. I got your answers in there. And awesome. We'll talk about those answers tomorrow. So you are good to go. Have a great afternoon. See you, buddy. Okay, next up, I've got Nathan. Are you out there? Okay, super cool. Okay, we missed a couple of questions there, so we'll review those tomorrow. Did you figure out what the right answer was when you went through them? Yeah, so when we're cutting with that circular saw using the speed square as a guide, where should we place our hands? The answer is our hands are on the saw, front handle, trigger handle, because the speed square is actually clamped down in place. So it keeps us really, yeah, that kind of a little tricky, but we did that, and that's what we got to get. So you got it. Have a great day, man. We'll catch you later. All right. Alexis, are you out there? Alexis, are you there? Where'd you go, Alexis? All right, he must have bounced already. Beckett, are you out there? Awesome sauce. Thank you, sir. Okay, so you've got 2 out of 3 good to go. Super important to make sure when we're making that mark where we want to actually cut, it's going to be on the bottom edge of the 2x4, so that when we bring the saw blade up to the bottom edge, that's what we're using to line up with our mark. Does that make sense, dude? Awesome sauce. All right, buddy. Have a good one. We'll see you later. All right, Jose, are you out there? All right. So Jose, we're going to go over these tomorrow because unfortunately you got all of them incorrect. So I want to make sure we'll cover this tomorrow. But you got it turned in, and then we'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay. Jose, are you there? Okay, buddy. See you later. Have a good one. All right, Taj. I know you can't. I don't know. Is your audio working now, Taj? Can't tell. But hey, good work. You're 3 for 3, man. Well done. Thank you for listening well and thinking it through. So you're golden. Have a great rest of the day. All right. Jonathan, I can hear you out there. Hopefully you're there. Awesome. Okay, well done. 3 out of 3, man. 100%. Thank you so much for listening well. Have a good one. All right. Alan, are you out there? Awesome. All right. Well done, young man. 3 for 3. Thank you for listening well and thinking that through, buddy. Have a good afternoon. See ya. Dominic, are you out there? Awesome. Okay, Dominic, looking good. So you got 1 out of 3. Okay, so let's just go over this real quick. So question number 1, when we're tracking what we're doing on the cut list and we're working on it, what mark should we use and put in the box? So it's the dot. You're going to put a little dot inside of the box which says I am still working on it. It's in process. And so that helps me, especially as your teacher and supervisor, that if you turn in after the day and you're not done with something, I know you're still working on it. So that's why that mark is good. Question number 2, right on. Question number 3 is we want to have both hands on the saw. Okay, one on the front handle, one on the trigger handle, because the speed square has its own clamp. And that's the super important part of the whole safety of cutting using this speed square as a guide, is that I can still put 2 hands on the saw, and that keeps it accurate and safe. Okay, does that make sense? Awesome. All right, Dominic, have a great one, man. See you later.